What's up, everybody? Welcome to Down to Earth. Today, myself, along with my mom, are going to be talking about sleep around the world, the different trends that different countries have, and we're also going to be talking about who gets the most and least amount of sleep throughout the world. So first, let's start with most well-rested countries on Earth. Are you ready, Mom? So number one at 8 hours and 5 minutes is the Netherlands. Then we have New Zealand, France, Australia, Belgium, Canada at 7 hours and 58 minutes, the United Kingdom, the United States, Japan at 7.5 hours, and then Singapore at 7 hours and 24 minutes. So at the top of the list is the Netherlands at 8 hours and 5 minutes, which that's a really good, wholesome night of sleep. That's the standard recommendation, and that's what they average. So the best sleepers in the country are probably sleeping a little more, and the average is right around that sweet spot of 8 hours. And then if we go further down the list, all the way at the bottom at Singapore is 7 hours and 24 minutes. So they're a whole half hour behind. And it's interesting because there's a huge drop off. Belgium is at 8 hours and 1 minute. And then there's a huge drop off to Japan at 7 hours and 30 minutes. All of the countries at the top are European or Western countries. And then the drop off starts at Japan, 7.5 hours, which Japan is known for really hardworking, tireless. And so is Singapore. These are really high performing Asian countries. So it seems like the culture is a big impact on how much people sleep.
I guess the ones that sleep less, like you said, is because it's like work, work, work. You know, that's like their main focus. Also, I think maybe school. I know that, maybe for families, it's work and then the kids go to school. And then Netherlands is probably a little more laid back, more family oriented. Probably it's like more vacation time for them, less work, maybe. I don't know. More benefits also?
Yeah, it seems like there is a big gap between the countries who are more focused on people and families, like you were saying, and then the ones who prioritize performance. So it says here, in general, they found that countries that were more geographically near each other and had similar cultures often shared very similar nighttime habits regardless of global trends. So that's why we saw a lot of the European countries with very similar sleep results. Who's getting the most naps? In Japan, it is culturally accepted, even respectful, for men or women to fall asleep at work or during dinner parties. This practice is called inamuri.
That's because they probably work so much.
And they're exhausted.
And they probably have to travel. I wonder if they have to travel further to go to work.
Commuting,
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. A lot of these smaller European countries are a little easier to navigate. I do think of commuting when I think of Japan. So, yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. Falling asleep at a dinner party is kind of crazy, though. Norwegian parents often let their children nap in their strollers outside, believing that fresh air is the best for a growing child.
I've seen that. I don't think it'll ever be a thing here in the States.
Why do you think that? Because of the cold itself kind of being sort of taboo?
Right. Yeah, it'll show as, even if you see sometimes people go into a store for something really quick and they leave their dog outside. That's cruelty.
You don't see that much anymore. There's a lot of different trends, either generationally or post-COVID, that are not socially acceptable anymore. And one of them is leaving dogs outside. You really never see that anymore. And so, yeah, leaving your child outside. I guess it's different in the United States. People are kind of crazy over here. But even if it's kind of protected, people still wouldn't want to put their kid outside because it's like, oh, cold is going to make you sick.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really the cold that makes you sick. It's other things. But yeah, I think it's cool that they get cold exposure. I mean, they're Norwegian after all. They're Vikings. So I think that's pretty cool culturally. In China, napping on the job is encouraged to keep up with the pace of business.
Awful. That's terrible.
I mean, it's great that they encourage napping, but it's not really for the sake of
No.
preserving the worker. It's more so of optimizing for efficiency and output. And it makes sense that China and Japan are both places where that's reinforced.
I mean, if you think about it, sometimes at work, you probably are, oh, if I were to take short nap, I would probably feel re-energized or like a siesta, like right after having lunch. They have like there's places where you can go take naps, like pods, just take
Do
a
you
nap.
have these?
No, but I'm just saying that would be great to have them at work.
A lot of the tech companies, I know they used to have it, like Google when they were in their heyday,
Yeah.
like when Silicon Valley was big, they had all these like rest and recovery things.
Right.
It makes sense if you're trying to
But that doesn't
optimize
sound the same as
productivity.
like in China. In China,
No.
it's just like probably like, sleep at your desk. Maybe.
Yeah. And so you can stay for an extra 2 hours. I mean, it seems like we're nearing that with
Yeah.
the United States, like especially with the lunch thing. Like, go eat your efficient slot bowl at your desk so that you can
Yeah.
not take time off. Whereas rest is more efficient than anything. So maybe we'll make those shifts. Americans and Japanese tend to nap more than people in Germany, Mexico, or the United Kingdom. Interesting that Americans tend to nap more. I wonder why that is. If I had to speculate, I would imagine it has something to do with our food. Like, we just eat a lot. It makes us tired. Maybe it's just a cultural thing as well.
But who is napping?
Yeah, if we work so much, 8-hour days. But it says we just tend to nap more than Germany, Mexico, or the United Kingdom. I don't know. And 65% of Canadians do not nap at all. Siestas are the most common throughout Spain, the Mediterranean, and countries with strong Spanish influence. So siestas are specifically a Spanish thing. I think Mexico does siestas as well, right?
Central America.
Siestas are a thing.
Yeah. I don't know about South America, but Central America, yeah.
Siestas or midday naps were first mentioned in the Quran, the religious text of Islam. So in Japan, 54% of people sleep alone compared to only 14% of Canadians. So this is talking about who shares beds with people, or I guess who has the opportunity to share a bed. Japanese people are notoriously isolated. There is a population crisis. There is like a marriage, family crisis, or just like it just doesn't happen as much. So most people are single or much older or isolated. So 54% of people in Japan are sleeping alone, that's a lot of people. That's the majority of
Right.
people in the country. It's kind of sad. Whereas in Canada, only 14% of people are sleeping alone.
Well, I wonder if that's also includes, there are some parents that like to share beds with their kids. So sometimes they connect like two big giant beds and they just sleep with the kids in the bed. That's I don't know if it's European, but I've heard of those things.
Yeah, well, in Canada, I guess they say they're nice. So maybe that has something to do with it. They're more willing to share and
Right.
be together. 83% of Vietnamese parents share the bed with their children. So, not European, but a different
Yeah.
cultural custom. 71% of American pet owners share their bed with their pets.
Yeah.
71% is crazy because that means a large majority of the pet owners in urban centers, like in cities, are also sharing
Yeah.
beds with their pets. And sharing with an animal, I think, especially a dog, can be unhygienic for different reasons. But in a city, that's what makes it
Right.
especially unsanitary to me. Because it's like your dog is walking outside
Yeah.
where everything else is, and then it comes into the house and sleeps with you in the bed. Yeah, that's not great. If you're on a farm or something like that, then you can maybe. But even then, but in a city, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
A cat is one thing, but the dog that's outside multiple times a day,
Yeah.
nah.
The cat is inside all day long. So
If you can get over the fur, it's not so bad, but You can't get over those pathogens.
Yeah.
32% of British people and 48% of Japanese go to bed with worries about money and or work. So you can see that big jump again. 32% of English people, of British people, are worried about work and money. And then jumps all the way up to 48% of Japanese people. So the United Kingdom had pretty decent sleep, and it was above Japanese people who had much less sleep. So we can imagine that those 30 minutes are being spent worrying.
Yeah.
And again, a cultural thing here. Man, Japan is doing bad with sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, they're at the top of the list in terms of sleep in general, like however many countries that was. It was probably 10 countries, but you'll notice that those are all industrialized, like finished countries. France, one of the biggest empires in history. United Kingdom, the biggest. United States, the current biggest. Japan was one of the biggest. So these are like countries that figured it out. So that's why they're at the top of the list. There's a lot more people who are stable. All the third world countries, people are working a lot more. So that's why they're not on that list. But here, Japan is interesting because they've made it in terms of they've arrived as a country. They're a very old civilization,
Right.
but now they're on the decline. And culturally, they're eroding because they're sleeping alone. They're not marrying. They're not having kids. They're not dating.
Wow.
And 48% of them are going to sleep with anxiety. And then most of them are sleeping alone.
How's the economy? I wonder if it's not so great.
I'm not sure. I mean, it's better than most other countries
Yeah.
because these are strong, established nations, but it's certainly on the decline, much like other economies. So here's the technology and less sleep section, a worldwide trend. 73% of Americans and 80% of Mexicans watch TV within an hour of bedtime, which checks out. In Europe, you wouldn't imagine them watching as much TV. Their culture is pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
In America, we're very culture forward. We care a lot about pop culture and, Netflix and whatnot. Whereas in other countries, they're more of like spending time with family, socializing, and even eating.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine if there's a stat on here about food, Europeans eat the closest to bed
Yep.
more than any other. Whereas Americans seem to be consuming a lot of content.
Right.
And it's interesting that 80% of Mexicans, which is a big jump from Americans, 73% of Americans to 80% of Mexicans. Why are they watching so much more TV than Americans? If I had to speculate again, Mexico is kind of the big consumer of American pop culture. Like Coca-Cola just comes to mind. Mexicans love Coke. They are always drinking Coke with every meal in the morning. That's like the picture perfect version of American culture is a bottle of Coke. They're kind of literally drinking the Kool-Aid.
They're also very, when it comes to their artists, they're very supportive of their own artist. So if you make it in Mexico, if you make it big, that means that once you make it, like the States, it's because of the support that the Mexican people gave to that artist. And, it's same for not just musicians, but actors and soap operas are big in Mexico.
Maybe it's that.
Yeah. So it's like they have their own pop culture, but then they also do consume because,
So they're like double fisting.
Right. Because,
all the culture.
Especially California, you have all these people that come to California to, Hollywood. But yeah, that's one thing that I remember finding out that they're big when it comes to their own artist.
Yeah, so it could be that they're watching a lot of their own,
yeah,
and then also consuming a lot of American culture.
Yeah.
62% of American children and teenagers take their cell phones to bed, and 37% text after lights out. So most American children and teens are taking their phones into their bed, which we know is really bad for so many different reasons. Like, not only is it the stimulation while you're in bed, but it's the association of your phone and texting and that reward while in your room.
Yeah.
Whereas your room should have the association of just being asleep. And then 37% are still texting and being stimulated after the lights are out when they should be trying to fall asleep.
Yeah. But that's the parents. They have to be able to control that.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents are hands off when it
Yeah.
comes to phones, and they're just either exhausted or they're distracted by the phones themselves.
And I think there's a lot of parents that have a hard time saying no.
Yeah, even if they feel like it's a problem, which I think a lot of them don't feel like the phone stuff is a problem. It's hard to imagine, but I do think that they think, oh, it's just their phone. But they probably also think that this is something that is okay. And if not, they don't know how to say no. Or their kid is just like, what are you really going to do? Like, at a certain point, like, teenagers are brutal.
Yeah.
It's hard to restrict them.
Yeah.
And 65% of Japanese have a tablet beside their bed.
Oof.
So they're always ready. They're always on. Global sleep problems. One of the most interesting findings in this study was that the amount of people slept per night across the world had very little to do when they decided to wake up in the morning. Instead, resting times correlated more closely with when people decided to go to bed. Regardless of nationality, the later a person stayed up at night, the more likely they were to get fewer Z's, which means better sleep. So they're just staying up and kind of burning their sleep. 20% of patients ask doctors for sleeping pills globally, and another study estimates that the amount of people suffering from sleep apnea has exploded to 1 billion, which is 10 times the amount previously thought. So there's two things in there. 20% of patients asking their doctors for sleeping pills throughout the world. So that means 1 out of 4 people is suffering so badly from sleep that they want to get synthetic sedation from it. Because sleeping pills is like far like the last resort. It's like the very bottom of what you want to resort to. Because if sleeping pills were really good for you, they would be more widely distributed. People don't talk about sleeping pills because it's like, damn, like that's pretty intense. That's pretty severe. But 1 in 4 people almost throughout the world are resorting to that.
I wonder if they're also taking if they take the melatonin and then they ask for
That's what I mean. Like, melatonin is not a sleeping pill. A sleeping pill is a prescription.
Yeah.
Which they're far more powerful than melatonin. Melatonin doesn't sedate you. It gives your brain the signal of, oh, it's time for bed. Hey, let's go to sleep.
Yeah.
So people also mistake melatonin for like, oh, if I take this, I'm going to knock out. Mm-hmm. It's still your brain kind of like just getting on track. A sleeping pill, depending on the severity, you're being almost tranquilized.
Okay.
Like Ambien, for example. These are very powerful drugs that are like turning your brain off pretty much. And they're still not, this is not good sleep you're getting. For some people, you need to find a way to get to sleep. But for most people, 20% of people, that's pretty severe. Mm-hmm. I don't imagine that all of those people are actually that damaged that they need sleeping pills. There's other things that they probably haven't tried to do. Like some of the simple things, getting sun, turning off your lights, that would help more people than they probably realize. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they feel that it's bad enough and they've tried a few things to where 20% are reaching for pills is pretty crazy. That shows you that we're at a pretty serious pandemic of sleep.
Yeah.
And even worse, the bigger epidemic is sleep apnea exploding to 1 billion people across the world. So sleep apnea is when your airway is compromised from your tongue collapsing. There's different versions of sleep apnea. So your tongue collapses, which kind of clogs your airway, which stops you from breathing. You wake up and, you're awake. It compromises your sleep. Once you're awake, you have to fall back asleep, even if you don't remember waking up. But for those few seconds, your brain is starved of oxygen. And that happens several times per hour to many people. That's how you categorize sleep apnea, is how many times per hour that your airway is compromised. Some people have 50 to 70 hours events per hour. So that means that their brain is being choked of oxygen briefly 50 to 70 times per hour. So 1 billion people across the world are experiencing that. That could be due to different things like stress impacts sleep apnea. Like the muscle tone of your tongue has a lot to do with stress, habits. A lot of this, I have to imagine, has to do with technology affecting your posture, your habits throughout the day, which affects your posture during sleep. Have to imagine poor diets are affecting sleep apnea because obesity is a huge contributor to sleep apnea because your airway, obviously, if you have more fat, is just kind of like constricted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that there was such a big underestimation of how many people actually have sleep apnea. Because it's interesting that a lot of doctors are very dismissive of a lot of things, but especially with sleep apnea, they're like, oh, well, you're young, you're active, you're healthy, it doesn't run in your family, whatever it is. There's all these excuses of like, oh, you don't have it, until they do a test and it's like, whoa, you do have it. And I think doctors and medicine in general is underestimating just how rapidly our health is deteriorating as a species.
Yeah.
And I don't know when they underestimated how many people it was, but I imagine, again, COVID has a lot to do with this global shift in tone. Our tone is just more anxious, paranoid, underslept, stressed, which translates to poor sleep. And this is the poorest that sleep can get, is apnea. Insomnia is the poorest in terms of being awake, but sleep apnea can kill you. Sleep apnea is a huge contributor to all-cause mortality. Heart disease, diabetes, stroke, all that stuff. So that's the poorest that sleep can get. And 1 billion people having it means that we're in a seriously bad place. And no sleep pill can fix that. Sleep apnea has to be fixed with CPAP, with like a pressure chamber, or serious lifestyle rehabilitation and habit changes. So that goes to show you that we are in a tough spot when it comes to sleep overall. Not just as a country, because I imagine that the United States has more sleep apnea than anywhere else because we're the most obese country. But as a species, we are struggling to sleep, and we gotta fix this.
There's some apps that you can use to see if you have some sort of sleep apnea.
Even the Apple Watch now, the newer Apple Watches check to see if they can, I don't know if they can diagnose, but if it can sense that you have events, like these hypoxia events, that's what it's called, then it can basically be like, hey, go to the doctor, like you keep not breathing at night.
One of these apps, I can't remember the name of it, but it actually records you. So you can hear.
Oh, if you snore.
Yeah.
Yeah, snoring isn't always sleep apnea.
Not just snoring, but like, when you stop breathing and then you react to it. There's a few.
Yeah, so snoring isn't always sleep apnea, but it's a great giveaway for sleep apnea, because snoring, what it is, your mouth is open, and that choking that you hear is your airway having like flesh in there, like your throat is making noise.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people think snoring means that you're getting good sleep, whereas it means you're choking.
All right.
So when you hear snoring, like when people say like, oh, does your partner snore? That's how you can easily diagnose sleep apnea, or at least get the diagnosis treated. And then those apps are really useful for people who don't have somebody, or who can't really tell, but they can speculate based on some of the symptoms that they have. But yeah, this is something that I think could really save a lot of lives. They always say, like, if you know somebody who snores, get them to, go get checked. Every time I hear somebody snore that I know, I'm like, yo, like, I'm not even trying to, be that guy, but this could save your life. Like, you snore and it's very severe. That means you're choking while you're asleep. Yeah. And over years, that compounds and contributes to disease.
And if you have a partner, then that affects your partner, not letting them sleep.
Exactly.
So it's like double.
It's funny, you often see in CPAP or sleep apnea discussion boards, or even in the offices where people are, getting diagnosed or getting the machines, you'll see the couples together because it's the wife that drags
Yeah.
the husband to go
Yeah.
get treated because she can't sleep.
Right.
Because this is something that affects everybody. And snoring is no joke. But that is the end of this article that covered all the different countries and the way they sleep. I think the general takeaway is that the countries that are privileged to be able to sleep more are privileged. And that's why they're either less worried or they're not working as much. But that glaring exception seems to be Japan, who, despite being, developed, privileged in that way, still has this anxiety that's there, because that's all it is.
Yeah.
Japan doesn't really suffer with sleep apnea. They don't have obesity issues. They're just stressed out and they're very anxious. So that's a dead giveaway of where they're at. And the other countries, like the rest, probably just need to adjust their habits a little bit to get like the Netherlands, which is 8 hours and 5 minutes of sleep. Okay. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks, Mom, for being a part of this. Any final words?
Try to figure out something to decompress and relax before you go to bed. So
That's all it is. The more you relax, the better you sleep. The better your sleep, the better your life. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you on the next one. Sleep well. Peace.